Hey everyone, if you're here, hello, welcome. We're live here with Mayra Gavia Molina. What I'd like to do is if someone on Facebook is able to see this video, usually there's a little bit of lag. I see that there's no one here yet. So if there is someone on Facebook, just go ahead and give me a comment to tell me that we're on. I'm gonna check Facebook and just see if I can see us. There's one person. So whoever just came on, would you go ahead and give us a comment if you can and let us know that we're live? You'll have to give StreamYard permission. It's just something that they have to do. Oh yeah, okay, so someone already liked the video. So we're on. Hi, Louise. Louise liked the video already. I guess we're awesome already. All right, so Mayra has had a very interesting life. She's one of the most inspiring women that I know, so I wanted to bring her into the group and chat with her. Mayra, you moved to the States when you were 20. You grew up in Mexico, so you speak 2 languages. You've lived in 2 cultures. You moved over 3 different places, right? Over what, a few years time, like really quick. So you've had to adjust to life in different places, even in a few years with kids and a husband. And what's impressed me most is that you just keep landing on your feet. You just keep figuring it out and creating these amazing lives wherever you go. I mean, you're just so lovable. I think people just, you and your family, people gravitate towards you. But I've been impressed with that. And I want to talk a little bit about your experience as well as a labor and delivery nurse, which is also pretty awesome. Not a lot of people get to see that side of being a woman, being able to bring life into the world, which I think is amazing. So what are some of the things that you learned? This is probably an endless topic, right? But what are some things you learned by watching women go through the birth process, rise to that huge challenge?
Hi, Melissa. Hi, everybody that is joining us tonight. First of all, I want to say thank you, Melissa, for having me here tonight with you. Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, and especially for the great purpose of this interview. So I really want to say thank you to you. Part of one of the biggest part, I guess, of my life has been that being a labor and delivery nurse, and it's just so incredible and amazing to see women going through that process. It really doesn't matter here if you have a C-section, a natural delivery, a epidural, no epidural, if your birth plan went the way you wanted to or not. At the end, this is just a very unique and moment with your body, and you have to kind of focus and take what you are going through on your own path. Most of us who have kids, arrive to this place where, you think that everything's gonna come out perfect. You show up to the hospital and then boom, you have a baby. But reality is very different. Yeah. The reality is that all of us go through our own unique path, and I think that's one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful thing I have seen a woman do. And like I said, doesn't matter what way, your body is just incredible and goes through all this pain and all these emotions, and most of the time you only have your partner in there, or a family member, but the truth is probably you don't want a lot more people than that. But it's a process that you kind of live on your own, and just with the closest people you have, and to be chosen as part of that process has been always a privilege for me. Because it's like that moment you connect very deeply with a person that probably 20 minutes ago, 2 hours ago, you have never met before. So yeah. It's really been a blessing that I was able to be a labor and delivery for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real gift, right? That's such a sacred time.
Yeah.
It's not even about being a woman or not. It's just this sacred process of bringing life into the world, right?
Yeah.
You get to be there with the partner as well and the family, and
Yeah, and it's that part too. It's just like I, there's a lot of people probably seeing us from different parts of the world, but I grew up Catholic, and so I attribute these miracles to God. It's like, oh my God, this is a miracle of life, and every single time, I don't know how many deliveries I attended, 100 or 500, I don't know, for 10 years, but every single time it was a moment of a miracle. It's like, what? This is really happening? And most of the time it's like this. Then of course we have the the other women that not only go through this process physically but emotionally as well,
Right.
and that's people who have difficult pregnancies. So that's
Right.
that's that's the other part of labor and delivery that most people most of the time are not aware of it, but it's
Right.
very real. It's very
Right.
real.
Right. I mean, it's a rite of passage. You're entering a whole other way of being, by before giving birth, and then after the birth, it's like you have this whole other awareness of what you are, who you
Yes.
are,
And what you're capable of doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
amazes me in women's work is, how small so many women feel and how incapable or, um, judged or whatever that women feel. But in reality, we are these amazingly capable beings. I mean, not only can we pass life, not every woman passes life, but I believe that we're holders of energy. We're people who process energy as well in the world. We're
Yes.
like the midwives of the planet,
Mhm.
just energetically, just from my kind of psychic intuitive self. We hold space.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
birth is just a physical manifestation of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people too. It's like, okay, the birth is amazing and it's a long process and our body goes through a lot, but it's the next 18 years that you're like, what do I do here?
That's the birth.
So that's a different stage of motherhood, but still
Yeah.
very important and lasts a lot longer than labor.
Yeah. I mean, we're still birthing for 18 years. We're helping these kids enter into reality,
Yes. Yeah.
It's a whole other phase of birth, actually.
That's
I'm
right.
glad you mentioned that. That makes sense. So, after seeing hundreds or maybe up to 1,000 women rise to the challenge of birth, what are a couple of challenges that you've risen to in your life?
Ooh, personally,
Yes.
um, there has been many. Just like um, I can think of like when I moved to this country. I could think of growing up, having different labels, and now believing that those labels were either not true or I'm working on those labels or things like that. But like you said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, being able to move to different places and being able to land on my feet. Sometimes it just looks like that, but sometimes I crumble a little bit and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So, I think those have been my biggest challenges to move to a different country with a different language and trying to do and be the best I can, you know, um, not just for me, but for my family and my kids. So,
Right. So adjusting to a whole new culture. I mean, when you moved to the States, did you have any English, any comfort with using the English language yet, or?
not really. So, actually, one of the comments somebody posted right now, one of my really good friends, I actually, when I arrived to Tucson, I attended English classes, and because I realized a little bit later that they taught me English in junior high and then high school, but I couldn't even ask for a soda or a Hawaiian pizza. People would not understand that on the airport. So it was like, so I don't speak any English. I can see that. So yes, it was really challenging because I did not really speak the language, and so I had to go and find English classes and get that support, from this amazing neighborhood center in Rio. You probably have heard about Rio. That's where I took my English classes. the Rio Neighborhood Center, but they empower me just not to take English classes, but I took the GED with them as well.
Okay.
And they gave me my first scholarship, which was the payment for that test for the GED.
Nice.
And I really, really needed that money for that GED at that time. I'm talking about 24 years ago. Yeah. And then eventually I asked if I could help in the office and be volunteering. So I kind of like to connect myself with other people. Mm-hmm. So I love to chat and talk. So I think that helped me a little bit too, to be able to I gotta speak.
Yeah, right.
Communicate with other people. But yeah, definitely a Rio Neighborhood Center and Lima Community College play a role in where I am today. That was my beginning with English classes and learning a little bit more.
Right. And then I know another time you and I spoke about someone at, your husband, when you moved here, Rudy encouraged you to go to college. He said, honey, you do it. I don't care if it's hard, just do your best.
Well, he actually didn't say anything, Melissa.
No?
How he did it and how he framed it is like, Mayra, I had arrived. So I went back to Mexico for a couple of years to wait for my immigration process. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back on April 17. And then by the end of April, he said, by the way, you start your first class on May 13. Oh. Like, what? At the U of A. At the U of A. And I said, at the U of A? Yes. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So that's how he framed it. And so I ended up taking even a summer course. It wasn't even like a full class. It was like all packed in 3 weeks, right? And so it was really devastating and it really hard, It's like those moments that you talk about challenging. I didn't even know what a freshman, sophomore, junior, I didn't know any of that. Wow. So when I arrived to my class, they say, introduce yourself, say your name and your year. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what are they talking about? What are they saying? Yeah. So it was embarrassing when I said, my name is Mayra and I am Mexican. And everybody laughed. So, a room full of students and younger kids. At this time, I'm a little older. I'm like 20, I would say 22, 23. Okay. And so, but then, I told Rudy, he's like, it's okay, I'll get better. And so I have this, my husband is really, he empowers me to do a lot of stuff, but he also doesn't let me say, oh, but I can't really do it. He's like, oh no, I think you can, go ahead. So, this is why I'm here today as well, because he has always been a great support for me.
Right. It sounds like that was important. I mean, I can't imagine kind of landing in a culture where the language is not your language. And, what do you do with that? Like, how do I go forward now? Because you want to learn and you want to get better, but it's probably scary as hell.
It is. I also shared with you earlier that, my first official class, a class that lasted from, I don't know when it starts, August to December, it was one of those general education classes, and it was these cultural traditions. So I had to write about 12 essays and read about 12 books, write an essay per book. Wow. And I shared this with you. I love to read, but not books, because by the second page, it's like I lose my attention span. So articles, I'm okay. They're short and sweet. But so imagine this. I don't speak the language. I can read a little bit better the language, but still don't understand many of the words. Even more, it was like old English, right? It's like the Phantom of the Opera and this and that. So by my second, third book, I come to the teacher assistant and I said, I'm sorry, can I withdraw the class? And of course, I'm saying it right now really nice and clearly. He probably said, I don't know what she's saying. Yeah. And I said, can I just please quit? I can't do this. I don't know. I don't speak the language. You keep on giving me D's. And my whole essays were red, right? Like with a red pen. Yeah. So, but he became someone, and I don't know his name, but I wish one day he could hear this conversation, because he became so important in my life, because he was the first person that I really felt he did not give up on me at the college level. He did not give up on me. He said to me, well, I won't withdraw you from the class. What we're going to do is we're going to meet every Thursday at noon, and we're going to go through your paper. And, I felt like, oh my gosh, he really wants to spend time with me? Like, seriously? He has like, I don't know how many other students, probably 50. And so he did for the fall, the rest of the semester. We met every Thursday. He will go to Café Paraíso in University Boulevard in Tucson, Arizona. And he will ask for his iced tea, right? And there I am, like, just watching him. And he will explain to me, I don't know what, because I was like trying to rest every single word. Yeah. But then I will go home and I will try to correct it. And he will continue giving me D's after meeting with him. And he will continue putting red pen marks on my papers. Yeah. And I would get so frustrated. I would be like, but I can't do this anymore. Why can't he just withdraw me from the class? Why is he wasting his time? Why is he wasting my time? And Rudy will just be quiet listening to me, like he had already talked to him or something. Yeah. And so, but you know what? I think that's been one of my key components as why I came through the challenges. Consistency and effort. Okay. If you mix those two things, you can accomplish a lot of things. So even though I did not believe it at the time, now looking back, I'm like, you know what? I show up every Thursday. I kept on editing my papers. Even though I was seeing red and only red and these on my papers, I kept on going. Wow. Why? I don't know. All I can think of is like my dad, he growing up, he used to tell me, do it. Go ahead and do it. Go ask for a spoon to a restaurant or something. What's the worst thing can happen? Mm-hmm. And I would be like, I don't know. And he would say that they say no to you. That's the worst thing can happen. If they say no to you, then that's fine. You come back and that's it. But at least you try. At least you try, and at least you look for that. So until today, that's one of the things that I do is like, okay, when I'm scared to do something or go and do something, I'm like, okay, what's the worst can happen? That they say no. Mm-hmm. So, I think at the moment I didn't really put it that way, but I think that's what helped me. I kept on going and going back. So finally, the semester ends and I'm like, I think he's just so mean. He's probably failed me and this is just so bad. And, when the grades come up on the computer, I see cultures and tradition grade A. An A is a perfect score in the United States, right? Yes. And I cry. And I cry because it didn't matter if I learn about the Phantom of the Opera, if I learn all these culture and traditional books. What it mattered is that he knew I was in the process to adapt to this culture, in the process of learning the language, in the process of being a new person in this country and college, and it wasn't your traditional student either. So I think at that moment I realized, oh my gosh, people are really here to help me. People are really here to help me to accomplish my goals. So that moment felt so empowering that until today I share that story all the time, because I think if he would have said, yeah, let me withdraw you from the class, my life probably would have been a different one. My life probably would have been like, well, I couldn't do it. I tried, but I couldn't do it. But because people like him, he said, let's do it. Let's do it. I'll help you. And I understand where you come from. Mm-hmm. I know where you're going from or where you're going to. And I seriously will forever be grateful to him as well, because he helped me to believe in myself,
Right. Well, he helped you to access a part of yourself that was there, but you needed someone to push you there.
Yes.
To give you that tough love in a way for you to reach, it's for you to reach the strength within you, because you had it. You still do. And now, that's something I talk about is called self-efficacy. It's believing in yourself. And self-efficacy is based on a number of different things. But one of the things is when we're able to look back at our past and say, oh, that one thing or those things that I did that I didn't think I could do, I did it. And so that feeds your ability to believe in yourself now. So you have these story, to look back on and say, for the rest of my life, I know that I did something that felt impossible, but you showed up. You know, you kept showing up, so it was him, but it was you, really. So would you say, we talked about this a little bit before, would you say that life in the US was easy? You know, aside from the language, I know that you and Rudy didn't, you know, you weren't like living in the nicest place in the world, and it was a little tough in the beginning.
It was. So Rudy and I met in my town in Mexico, Guanajuato, in 1997. So I was 18 when I met him, and he's 20. And just to give you a time frame, now I'm 42 and he's 43.
Okay.
And he, you know, when we met, of course, he wasn't going to college, and I was taking English and other languages classes in Mexico. And so at one point he had to come back, and then I had to stay. But then we're like, oh, we really want to be together. So how do we make this work? So we made this commitment of like wait to have kids until he was done with, you know, college and everything. But I think we had bigger goals, long-term goals, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how it started. So I came to the U.S. and next time when you interview me, we can talk about my whole process of, you know, immigration and how I arrived here and everything, because I think that's very important as well. Absolutely. But because of time frame, I'm just gonna cut short in there. So when we arrive, you know, now people that know us now but didn't know us back then don't know that what you see today has been the work of a lot of effort and a lot of commitment to what we wanted to accomplish 20 years from that time. You know, it was actually 15 because my husband is a planner. So we have a paper that he wrote back then.
Okay.
That in Tucson, and said, where do we see ourselves in 15 years?
Okay.
And he said, in 5 years this, in 8 years kids, and you will finish your school, this. So it was all planned, right? Yeah. And so as a deliverer of God, I'm like, okay, you can say whatever you want, but God is gonna tell when and when is the right time. But you know, God is so good to us too that he actually kind of followed or plan. It kind of happened how we had planned it, but again, I don't think that's a coincidence. You know, even my 14-year-old says all the time, I don't think it was God, Mom. I think what it is that you guys work for it and you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you're giving credit to God, but give yourself some credit because you guys work for it really hard. Right. So, you know, we used to live in a studio apartment. Rudy's friends were amazing and still are. And so when they came, they arrived. We didn't have a bed. We didn't have plates. We didn't have nothing, Melissa. But we had each other, right? And we had these dreams and these long-term goals. And you know what? We got all the help that we could. And so, you know, the part that we used to live was kind of a scary part in Tucson.
Okay.
It's kind of close to downtown. I don't know if people know this, but it's like, I don't know, Speedway and Stone, I believe. Yeah. And so, yeah, and we didn't have a car. We didn't have anything. And so one of Rudy's teachers actually gave us two kids' bikes. And Rudy's 6'2" and I'm 5'2", so I was okay with the kid bike, but Rudy was a little too tall for it. But that was our first mode of transport from in Tucson. And you know, those bus passes that you get as a college student. But you know, again, looking back, it's amazing, and how you work for it, and it can be possible. You know, it can be possible. So I don't know. It's just that sometimes it's good to look back and see where you come from and what are the challenges that you have faced. You know, because I think one of the other things that helped me to land on my feet in every other place is because I think I realized that it doesn't matter who, where, how, everybody has challenges.
Yeah.
It's how you approach them that is going to make the difference.
Right.
So you can either see them as a positive way or as a negative way. And what it has helped me to has been that if it's a bad thing, you still accept it for what it is. And you acknowledge it. I think it's really important that you acknowledge that. And once you acknowledge and you digest that, you're like, okay, now what? How can I find a solution? How can I tackle this problem? You know, but I come from a family that is really like, I don't want to say explosive because it's kind of too much, but they kind of like heat up a little bit too fast, right?
Yeah.
And I always say, calm down, let's think about this. How do we do these? You know, and my dad was that kind of way. So I always think of my dad and I would say, what would my dad do? How would my dad react to these?
Okay.
And I think that has helped me to like kind of slow down and think, all right, we were faced with this. Instead of panicking, instead of rushing, instead of jumping, let's focus, let's slow down, take a step back, breathe, and find a solution.
Right.
Try to find a solution. So
Right.
I think that has kind of helped me along the way as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, just the example of all you had were kids' bikes. I mean, some people, you can look at that and say, oh, this is terrible. All you have is kids' bikes. Life is so hard. Or you can say, wow, it's great. We've got wheels. We can go places, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge difference. That makes a huge difference between, you know, when we're able to really go somewhere, even if it takes time, and when we're kind of down on ourselves. You know, it's like a thought. It's just a difference of a thought. You flip the thought over, shift it. Oh, actually, there is something good about this. Let's go. You know?
And you accept it because you wanted that. You know, like I shared with you earlier too. It's like at one point I wanted to go back home in Mexico, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? You know, it's like in Mexico, my mom takes me to eat seafood. Here, I can even eat meat because we don't have meat. You know, money for more than chicken for a whole year. But you know what? It's what you want at the end. It's what you long term again is.
Right. It's investment.
It's investment. That's right. And everything is. This is the other thing. If you want something, it's gonna probably cost you, because you know, and that means it's gonna cost you work. It's gonna be effort, and you're gonna stay focused on it. Like if you really, really want it, that's how it is. And if it would be too simple, I don't think we really want it that much. You know?
Right. I think when we work
for granted,
we really appreciate what we have. You know, it's money, it's time, it's energy. And I think when things are easy, it's easier to just sit there and let life roll over you. But when it's hard, you have to actually get up and stand up and do something. You know, you have to meet your life in order to make something happen. You know, the whole transition, not just coming to the US and then starting out with no money and not knowing, but even before, you know, being faced with different challenges that forced you to say, well, am I going to stand up or am I going to lay down? You know, I think from what I see of your life, it seems like you took those opportunities and you turned them for you. You created something for you rather than against you. You know, and because of that, your life has improved, you know, over the 20 years it's been. I wanted to talk a bit about, if you're okay with it, I've got my questions here. I want to make sure I'm in the right place. Do you mind talking about some examples of racism and or racial stereotyping that you faced, not just in the US, but in Mexico? We talked a little bit about that, even within your own family.
Yeah, definitely. I usually don't talk openly like on Facebook or things like that about, you know, these issues, but they're really, really important to me because I firsthand have been, I guess, targeted or discriminated against because of my skin color, you know. So when I said about my family, you know, it's like you take a little back to find out why you're having trouble with who you are sometimes. And you know, like I told you the other day, I'm like, okay, I can't even see myself on the screen because I don't know if I accept myself completely, but it's a process that I'm working on. And I think once you go and find the root, why is it that you have a little bit of trouble with that? I think it's the labels that you put as a person, you know, who gives you those labels. And I remember the first story that now I can understand, but back then when I was little, of course, it was just like kind of like a joke. But now it's like I think seriously. Is when one of my mom's aunts saw me for the first time after I was born, and she tells my mom, "Oh, she's so dark, poor thing, but she's so beautiful." You Back then it was like, not really a big deal. Now it's like, okay, that's why I'm having a little hard time accepting my skin color.
Absolutely.
It's because that had an impact. And sometimes we say it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, but it does matter for those people. There's the labels that, that affect people. You can say positive labels or negative labels, and you're going to believe those. So that was the first kind of thing that within my family, and of course I can give you more samples, but the other thing I was just kind of impressed is when I arrived to the US, and my husband is Chicano, and he is a first generation and third generation Mexican American. But when I meet one of his aunts, I go to the family and she just kept on staring at me and then staring at him, and then finally she says, "Oh, mijo, you're the first one to marry a Mexican." And I'm like, what did I miss here? I'm like, you never told me you're Italian.
Right. Are you not?
It's kind of those things that you don't even self-identify as where you come from.
Right.
And I believe that's the problem that we have. We usually blame other races for discriminators and this and that. But I think if we find and we go back and dig a little bit more on the root, it's like, it starts with us. We gotta accept ourselves. Right. We gotta love ourselves. We gotta show the world that, you know what, I am proud of being Indian, an indigenous group in Mexico. I'm a whole mix because I don't know the rest, but I identify myself as a mestiza woman. Why? Because I am a product of a culture that has more than one race, and I'm proud of it. Right. But that wasn't always the case. Right. So I think when other people say those comments like, "Oh, you're the first one to marry Mexican," when the family is Mexican, I think you see that they have been either discriminated before or have suffered some kind of racism.
Right.
That's why you don't want to kind of relate to that or be part of it.
Right.
And so that was really, really powerful and strong. And then the latest, not the latest, but like one of the things that later through my career I found out was that some people had a hard time for me holding a job, a career that was probably not meant to be for me because I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
So one of my husband's friends, she said to me, "How do you think you're going to make it to nursing school? People from here, they don't even make it. I don't think you're going to make it." She told me right straight on my face.
Ouch.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I don't know, but I'll try."
Wow.
So I did. And for 500 people, they accept 50 people, and I was one of them. And I was like, awesome. Because God wanted me to be here, and because I have worked really hard for it. When my first job as a labor and delivery nurse, I show up and I have my big badge that says RN on it. And I show up, but my whole floor had surgical scrubs because we all went into the OR at one point or not. So there's this nurse that comes to me without asking how or saying hi, how are you, who are you? She straight up to me says, "Oh, room 10 is ready to be cleaned." And I'm like in shock, but again, back then I didn't know what I know now, So she made me feel really uncomfortable.
I bet.
Because not that there's anything wrong with people that clean. The problem is that what she did, what she said, and how she assumed without asking, right?
Exactly.
So and then another nurse came and she's like, "Oh, no, she's one of our new nurses." So look, and I'm like, I had this big batch RN, but she didn't care to look. She cared directly to me and my skin color, and you probably are the one who's gonna be cleaning the hospital. So that was really, really disappointing. In Chicago is another place where I felt very accepted by our closest friends, but also very discriminated against for living in downtown Chicago in a high rise.
Okay.
So usually I found Uber drivers or people at the store would be like, "So are you going to work?" When I took an Uber from a certain place I was to, like,
right.
They would be like,
rise.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, so do you work there?" I'm like, "No." And then I felt like I had to justify myself why I lived there. There would be questions like, "Oh, but that's really expensive. How do you do it?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like other people just like Anglo people are asked these questions, like other races are asked these questions, or is it just my race or my ethnicity? Because I was like straight up on my face asking me those questions, and I was like, wow. So I felt like I felt the need to justify myself. And at the beginning, I'll be like, well, I went to school, I am a nurse, my husband was a physician. So I'm trying to give this whole speech to convince them why I could live in downtown Chicago.
Right.
Until one day, after 100 Ubers, I don't know how many, I said, you know what, that's it. I said, I'm sorry, that's it. I am not going to feel uncomfortable anymore. The person who's going to feel uncomfortable is going to be the person asking these questions. It's not my problem that you're not okay with it. I am okay with it, and I have to take it. Right. So, this time, the next time somebody asks me, like, so do you go to work? No. Open-ended question. No, yes. And then they couldn't get out of their own thoughts because they wanted to dig more, but then I wasn't providing any information. I'm like, I'm not going to share with you any of that. Mm-hmm. So, that's something I really, really want people to really understand. You're not the one to feel uncomfortable. That's not your job to accept that. It is the job of the person who is making you or trying to make you feel uncomfortable to feel uncomfortable, not you, not me, because they have the problem with me living in downtown, no me. Right. So they could come up, they could come with their own answer if you want to, Yeah. I don't have to convince nobody.
Yeah. Doesn't change you no matter what they think, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful lesson. I know it wasn't comfortable, but it sounds like you got some empowerment from that, some self-empowerment, that had nothing to do with the other people.
Yeah, it's again with labels, One of the other things that I don't like when people call me is exotic.
Really?
They look at my hair and they're like, oh, you look so exotic. And I'm like, I don't feel like a leopard or like a tiger or like anything like that. I'm sorry, I'm a woman and I have curly hair and I have a different tone of skin or whatever you want to call it. But please don't call me names. Don't call me exotic. I think that really bothers me when people use those kind of terms.
Yeah, it suggests other as well.
Yeah. Different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, I'm not okay with it. So
people don't even think about it.
Yes.
That's the problem. They're not thinking, well, how would it feel to hear that?
Yeah.
How would it feel to be labeled?
Mm-hmm.
They think they're complimenting you, but they're actually labeling you.
Correct.
Correct. So I'm glad you talked about that. I appreciate that. I know that there's most certainly some women in the group that would appreciate hearing your take on, it's not your responsibility to feel uncomfortable. It's theirs. If they're going to be judgmental or stereotypical, stereotyping, then that's their problem.
Yeah, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. I think if they are the ones asking those inappropriate questions or they're acting in an inappropriate question, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. You're not the one that needs to be in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're coming up on 40 minutes. I wanted to talk a little bit about you as an artist. I know that you now have a full-fledged relationship with artwork.
Yeah. So that is actually a new stage of my life. Like I feel like Chicago was really such a great inspiration for me. But also that inspiration came from grief and pain through the loss of my dad. My dad passed away 2018. And at the beginning of 2018, before he passed away, my husband actually suggested if I needed some help, with the therapist, because he said, the way he describes me is like, you're here, but you're not here.
Okay.
So I was, my family, my whole family's in Mexico, except for one sister I have in Oregon. And so I was constantly thinking, and my thoughts were always in Mexico with my mom and my dad. And so I didn't actually took his advice. I go to a therapist and I just kind of let everything out and vent all my feelings. However, when my dad passes away, I'm doing great. I think I'm doing great. I'm moving on forward and like I can deal with this. I can help my mom. I can help this. But my mom had a really hard time. They were married for 52 years. So I talked to her every day and she used to cry and cry and cry and cry. And I'm like, then slowly I felt all this anxiety built up. and I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? So how, don't know. But then one day I just grab a canvas, paint, start painting. And I'm like, did I create that? Did I do that? Now I have to tell you something. My brother is an anesthesiologist, and he's great at drawing. He's amazing at drawing. And his daughter too. And then my sister in Oregon, she's an artist too, and she does great job painting. That's her main focus. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I can actually, and I was so embarrassed at the beginning to show them my work. But anyway, I know we're coming short on time, but let me just tell you that I find out that art was the channel for me to meditate. I couldn't find it through praying in a way, the traditional Catholic way of praying.
Yeah.
But it was a praying, a meditation, and my thoughts were my own and my own space. So this is how I feel like art has helped me. It's art for healing. So I always connect healing and art together, and that's how I ended up being an artist, and how I want to share now with the world, because it has given me so much happiness and be able to heal. So, and now I share that with my neighborhood, and they love it too.
Yeah, it's really cool how you got to Chicago, and then you just said, well, let's do something. And you started sharing artwork with the kids in the neighborhood and the families in the neighborhood, and now you all do it regularly, right? Together. We do,
and it didn't stop there. Again, Rudy and I always think that there's room for growth and learn to learn. So through the pandemic, that's the way I have been able to deal with the pandemic, because I take classes from Mexico, like online, that before the pandemic I was never able to take because they were not offered. Right. But now I felt like I have a deeper connection, because I get to have like 2-3 hour classes with people and speaking Spanish, and they're talking about food. And just like that connection, even when I am not in Mexico. Now through the pandemic, I feel like I'm closer to Mexico in that way.
Yeah. That's so great.
So I continue taking classes for that.
Yeah. It sounds like it's fulfilling, like it brings you something that you really need, which is connection. We all need connection. That's part of why I do these interviews, so that we can all realize, we all have more in common than we think.
Definitely.
Even when we feel alone, especially in this last year or so, right, where everybody is kind of in their own bubbles. A lot of people are in their own bubbles. I think it's easy to forget, wow, there's all these other people out here who might look different, talk different than I do, have a different life circumstance than I do, have a different income, but there's always something that connects us.
Right.
One of the things that I'm drawn to the work with women for is to help create more peace in the world, one person at a time, so that we can not only feel connected to other people, be kind to other people, but also be kinder to ourselves. I think it starts here. I think our relationships with ourselves are the ones that are really the worst, and it comes out in the world. So when we can find things like that we need, fulfill our needs, like with you artwork, we're at peace. We become more at peace, and we're a more positive presence in the world. And even connecting to the neighborhood, a lot of those people in the neighborhood, your neighborhood, are probably getting their needs met by the group as well. And
I know the kids are. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But it's just like it's this bubble of peace that spreads out, from each person when we're really taking care of what we need.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do believe that self-care is really important. In self-care could mean different ways. Like, you have the traditional, massage, or like some people actually go and have a spa day. They call it a spa day, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That makes you feel better. That's amazing. I share one time in my life that I have to get up and shower right away. If not, I can function. Those are the basics. For me, it's just the basics. If I shower right away, I know I will have a great day. But if I don't shower as soon as I wake up, I feel like my whole day is just like not working the same way. So I think like self-care, so then I can take care of my kids. And then for me, it's not so much probably the spa. It's not so much, although I love massages, it's not my reality. Yeah. But, when I feel in the need to say something or feel this build up, it's like, oh, I go and look for a coach, a doctor, a therapist,
Right.
to help me. And that's just nothing about luxury on it.
Yeah.
It's taking care of yourself so you can help others.
Exactly. Yeah, we think of it as a non-necessity, but then there's so many things in our lives that fall apart when we're not taking care of ourselves. So yeah, I just don't think our society teaches, when you have problems with money, with relationships, with friends, with, where you live, with your health, our society doesn't teach actually go within. It teaches, well, spend more money.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't teach go through the self-work, read the book, work with coaches, work with therapists, connect with groups. It doesn't teach that. It teaches, the endless money pit of just buy more crap or just buy more food or just, whatever.
Right.
Things that don't really solve your problems.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the preventive kind of like healing, preventive measures, I guess, kind of help you to in the long term. Like when I tell my kids I'm going to the therapist, I don't want them to say like I'm in crisis, I'm having, a tough time. I'm telling them I'm going to the therapist because I want to become better, because I want to prevent myself to get to that if I don't deal with this problem I have. I had an accident really quick. I had an accident in 2009. Yeah, with a bike accident. It's a bike accident in Tucson. And that just kind of turned my life around. And it's like, that was the first time I felt like I can't deal with anything. I don't want to do anything. Nobody understands me. And it was all me. So that was the first time I think it was my dentist who said, Mayra, go and find therapy. Don't take the medication. I think what you went through is acute trauma. Go find it. So, I've been diagnosed with PTSD, but because of the accident. And so, once in a while, then I felt like, okay, after I talked to you, I felt a lot better. So now I go to the doctor when I go, and I said, after I leave there, it's like it was my spa day.
Right.
Because it was preventive. I don't want to get to that point. I don't want to get to that problem. But if you find yourself that you're in that problem, that's great to go to a therapist too. I think we have a hard time accepting mental illness or mental health as a big issue, and we should take this very seriously.
It's a huge issue. I mean, this topic I could talk about forever because this is what I do. I help people, kind of like put their puzzle back together, right? Because there's so many of us meaning people in general, but I work with women. So there's so many women who get into dysfunctional relationships. They start barking up the wrong tree with men who really don't treat them well, and, do a lot of things. There's a lot of addiction in the world, and a lot of that happens because we haven't gone within to figure out, okay, what is going on? What makes me want to get into these relationships with abusive men? Like, you know that you did a bit of that way before Rudy. And I've done it, and, we've all done it. So it's like, well, how do I fix this? And society's like, well, just go get drunk or whatever.
Right.
Rather than, all right, well, there's something that I'm doing, there's something I'm perceiving, there's something I'm looking for that isn't working for me. How do I do that? So I think the preventative care is self-care so that you can stop having the detrimental relationships. You can stop having the detrimental habits and addictions, That's just my belief, and that's why I do the work that I do. So you're actually advertising for me without knowing it. Thank you. So I wanted to kind of wrap up. I know some people have been hanging out with us for almost an hour here. Mayra and I have a lot to talk about. There's more, but maybe another time we can fill in some other stories. But I wanted to let everyone know who listens to this video that we have a couple more interviews coming up. My intention is to do them regularly. So if anyone in the group has had something come up in their lives that they have risen to a challenge and figured out how to get through it, or maybe you're figuring it out now, let me know if you want to do a video like this. I'm interviewing anyone who's interested that works for an interview. So we have another one coming up next week. I believe it's next Tuesday with Molly Helsel. which is going to be really cool because she was a professional MMA fighter. So mixed martial arts, if any of you have ever watched it, it is bloody, it is intense, and she kicks ass. I actually worked with her on one of her last professional fight, I think, and she was a badass. She won, and it's pretty cool. I want to ask her about what that was like to work in a field, where there's a lot of men, and it's intense, it's physical. She's also a bouncer at the bar, so she's one of those women who breaks up fights and keeps the peace. So she's also a sweetheart and a super kind woman, and she's got a daughter who's awesome too. So we're going to talk to her next week. We also have Yarrow King in 2 weeks, who is an African dance instructor. I want to talk to her about women and body awareness and self-empowerment. She's a super inspiring lady. She's got lots to share. So I promised in some of my things that I wrote about this interview with Mayra, I promised that I would pose a challenge and offer a reward for anyone who fills it. I'm going to have to pick one woman, so if there's a bunch of you, I'll just pick from a hat or something. So here's the challenge. If you have a piece of paper, go ahead and write it down, or you can just rewind this later and listen to it again. So the challenge is in the next week, so by next Monday, invite 5 women to join the group. Share 3 inspiring or funny posts just across the next week, not like 3 this minute, but sometime this week. And then just post a little story in the group about yourself, a challenge that you've risen to or something that you're working on now. I think it's really empowering to share our stories, obviously, right? That's why I do this. You're in a safe place in the group. So that's the challenge. 3 things: invite 5 women, share 3 posts, and write a little something about yourself in the group. And the reward will be a full hour session with me, which is $125 value for free, for nothing. And that's for life coaching and health coaching. So I will let everyone know on April 12th who won. Like I said, if there's a bunch of women, I'll literally pick a name from a hat just to be fair. But if there's a runner-up, I've also got t-shirts in the making that are for Women Empowered. Yay, I'm so excited. So I'll give the runner-up a t-shirt. I'll contact you to find out your size and everything. Let's talk another time, Mayra. I mean, if you want to, I'd love to hear your story, your immigration story. That was one thing. I know there's more too. Relationships, we could definitely delve into that another time as well. So anyone who's on here, share a little thank you, give a little love to Mayra. We already have a comment here. Thank you for sharing, Mayra. That's from Jill. And I know there's going to be more women listening over the next week. So Mayra, I just want to commend you on your bravery showing up today. Just showing up every day, just showing up every day of your life and being an amazing woman. It's really important for other women to see women like you who are challenged by things and who just say, you know what, I'm scared. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to do it. There's so many amazing women out there. From doing the work that I do, I get to see kind of behind the scenes what women think about themselves. And there's so many of us hurting. It's so important to know that even when we're hurting, we can still find a way to love ourselves. We can work at it daily. We can do little things and we can get there. It might not ever be perfect, but it can get a lot better. So,
and one advice to everybody that works for me is like, start with the smallest thing and move up to the biggest thing.
Absolutely. I love the story about you and Rudy on your little bikes. That's like going to pop up in my head whenever I'm starting something new. I feel like I'm riding a kid's bike a lot of the time with the business and the online stuff. And, I just got to keep riding that bike until I can get a BMW, eventually, maybe 20 years, but hey, if I can get there, I'll get there.
Hey, work hard. We have, I don't know how many bikes now in our garage. So I know last year I got 2 for myself, and one mountain biking and the other one just a regular bike. And I don't think I can do mountain biking yet, or I don't know if I ever will, but it's hard. That's hard, but keep working towards your goals and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mayra. This was really special. I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty. So everybody in the group, keep sharing stuff, keep showing up, keep liking. You know, let's be a supportive community. Sending all of you lots of love, and I'll see you again. I'll probably post something this week. You guys know me. I'll probably do a video, but I'll talk to you
Thank you,
soon.
everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mayra.